You want a real mate? Then prove it. Alien girl pulled human clothes despite every law. Aurelia had studied hundreds of species before humanity. She had memorized their instincts, their mating cycles, their laws, and their failures. Every species believed itself unique. Every species was wrong. Humans were supposed to be simple. That was what the coalition reports said. Emotionally loud, fast to bond, faster to break those bonds, dangerous not because of strength but because of attachment. They loved quickly, trusted deeply, and suffered loudly when it went wrong. That was why the laws existed. That was why cross-species mating was forbidden. Aurelia believed the data. She always had, until she met Jonah Hale. Jonah was not impressive when she first saw him. He was seated at a shared workstation, sleeves rolled up, quietly fixing a translation error that had delayed diplomatic talks for 3 days. He did not notice her arrival. He did not rush. He did not smile for approval. He simply worked. Aurelia observed him for several minutes before announcing herself. That alone was strange. Humans usually reacted fast to authority figures. Jonah did not jump. He looked up slowly, focused, and then stood. "You must be Liaison Aurelia," he said. His tone was calm, not submissive. Not challenging, just factual. "Yes," she replied. "You were informed of my arrival window." "I was," Jonah said. "I hoped you would be early. The system works better if it's watched from the start." That was the first mark against the models. Humans were supposed to perform for observers. Jonah adjusted his chair instead. Aurelia took her place beside him. She activated her recorder. "You are aware that your species has been classified as biologically incompatible with mine?" Jonah nodded. "Yes." "No emotional bonding is permitted," she continued. "No physical closeness beyond professional necessity." "Yes." "You do not appear disturbed." Jonah paused. "Should I be?" Aurelia studied him. His pulse was steady, his breathing normal, no stress indicators. "Humans usually protest these restrictions," she said. Jonah considered this. "Protest doesn't change facts, understanding does." That answer stayed with her. Over the following weeks, Aurelia observed Jonah closely. He became her assigned human counterpart, though neither had requested it. The systems matched them based on compatibility risk, meaning Jonah was considered unlikely to cause trouble. The irony would later make several council members uncomfortable. Jonah explained human systems with patience. He never mocked alien confusion. When others dismissed human habits as primitive, Jonah corrected them without anger. When praised, he deflected credit to his team. When insulted, he did not rise to defend himself. Aurelia began setting quiet tests. She delayed approvals that would benefit him. He adapted without complaint. She misinterpreted his words in meetings. He clarified politely, never accusing. She placed him in situations where breaking rules would have helped him. He followed the rules anyway. One afternoon she asked him directly, "Why do you not push back?" Jonah looked surprised. "I do when it matters." "And this does not." "It does," he said, "but not more than the people involved." That answer unsettled her. Among her people, devotion was proven through controlled sacrifice. Emotion was dangerous. Choice under pressure was sacred. A mate was not someone who felt strongly, but someone who restrained themselves willingly. Humans were said to fail that test. Jonah did not know he was being tested. One evening, a cultural misunderstanding erupted in the station commons. A visiting species interpreted a human gesture as mockery. Voices rose. Tension thickened. Jonah stepped forward not to argue but to apologize on behalf of a stranger he did not know. Aurelia watched as he absorbed blame that was not his. The conflict ended quietly. Later, she asked him why. "They were scared," Jonah said. "Fear doesn't need correction. It needs space." That answer shook something loose inside her. She reviewed the footage that night, not just of Jonah but of other humans. Patterns appeared where none were supposed to exist. Humans restrained themselves constantly. They joked to hide fear. They stepped back when stepping forward would have been easier. They chose loneliness rather than violation. The laws had assumed humans could not control their bonds. The evidence suggested the opposite. Aurelia's questions grew sharper. Do humans bond because they must, she asked one day, or because they choose to? Jonah did not answer immediately. Both, he said, but the choice is the important part. Why? Because choice means responsibility. That word echoed uncomfortably. The coalition chamber summoned Aurelia unexpectedly. They questioned her reports. They asked why she had not flagged Jonah as a risk. They reminded her of the laws. She answered honestly. He has violated none. They warned her not to confuse discipline with compatibility. She returned to the station unsettled. That was the day she decided to test the final boundary. During a formal review, Aurelia deliberately placed herself too close. It was a subtle violation, one her people would have ignored. Humans, according to data, would lean in. Jonah stepped back. He did not touch her. He did not comment. He simply adjusted his distance to restore balance. Aurelia felt something tighten in her chest. Later, she asked, "Did I make you uncomfortable?" "Yes," Jonah said simply. "Why did you not say so?" "You didn't intend harm," he replied, "and I could move." That was it. That was the moment Aurelia understood. Humans did not lack control. They practiced it so deeply that others mistook it for weakness. The realization terrified her. If humans could choose restraint over instinct, then the laws were wrong. Not just about mating, about trust, about danger. Aurelia spent the night reviewing her people's oldest texts. The words were clear. A true mate was one who chose you when they did not have to. Jonah fit every requirement, and he did not even know it. The next assembly was full. Representatives gathered to discuss humanity's future classification. The mood was cold, analytical. Jonah stood at the edge of the chamber, present only to provide technical clarification if requested. He did not expect what came next. A council member asked Aurelia directly, "Have you observed emotional deviation?" Aurelia rose slowly. Every protocol screamed inside her. Every law warned her to stay silent. She looked at Jonah. He met her gaze, confused, respectful, ready to step back if asked. Instead, Aurelia crossed the chamber. Gasps rippled through the room as she reached him. She stopped an inch away. Then deliberately, carefully, she pulled him close. Not in desire, in claim. Alarms activated. Security froze. Jonah stiffened, instinctively preparing to step away, but her grip was firm, controlled, unmistakable. Aurelia turned to the council. "You want a real mate," she said calmly. "Then prove it." The chamber fell silent. Jonah's heart pounded. He did not move. He trusted her without understanding why. And across the galaxy, every law that had ever defined humanity began to crack. Silence held the chamber after Aurelia's words, thick and heavy, as if sound itself was waiting for permission to exist again. The alarms faded into a low hum. No one moved. Jonah felt the warmth of her hand against his arm. It was steady, not desperate, not afraid. That steadiness mattered more than the shock racing through his thoughts. Slowly he spoke. "Aurelia," he said quietly, careful not to pull away, "you're breaking a lot of rules." "Yes," she replied, her voice calm and clear, carried easily through the chamber. "I am." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Some were angry, some were alarmed, others looked curious. One of the senior counselors stood. "Release the human immediately," it commanded. "This display is improper and illegal." Aurelia did not tighten her grip, but she did not let go. "He will be released," she said, "if he chooses it." All eyes turned to Jonah. He swallowed. His instincts told him to step back, to restore order, to make this easier for everyone. That instinct was strong, but so was something else. Jonah looked at Aurelia. "If I step away," he asked, "what happens to you?" "I will be removed from my post," she said honestly, "possibly exiled." He turned back to the council. "Then I won't." The chamber erupted in murmurs. The words were simple, but their meaning spread fast. Jonah was not frozen. He was not coerced. He was choosing to stay. Security officers hesitated, unsure how to act when the subject of the violation refused rescue. A counselor spoke sharply. "Human, you are not permitted to consent to this." Jonah frowned slightly. "Then your laws don't understand consent." That sentence landed harder than any threat. Aurelia released him then, stepping back to stand beside him instead of in front. The claim had been made. It did not need repeating. "What you just witnessed," she said to the council, "was not instinct, not impulse, not emotional weakness." She gestured gently toward Jonah. "It was choice." The council demanded evidence. Aurelia gave it. She submitted her full observation logs. Weeks of data, recorded interactions, patterns of behavior not filtered through human reputation or alien bias. The chamber screens filled with moments. Jonah stepping back when allowed to advance. Humans refusing advantage if it required humiliation of others. Crew members choosing isolation over violation. Time and again, humans were shown limiting themselves without being forced. The room grew quiet again, but this time it was not shock. It was calculation. A junior counselor asked, "Why was this not seen before?" Aurelia answered, "Because you were looking for lack of control. You never thought to look for discipline." The phrase echoed. The council recessed for deliberation. Jonah was escorted to a private waiting area, though no restraints were used. Aurelia was separated, placed under formal review. Neither protested. Hours passed. Jonah sat alone, staring at the station lights beyond the viewport. Doubt crept in. Had he made things worse? Had he misunderstood her intentions? The door opened. Aurelia entered, her posture unchanged, but something softer in her eyes. "They are afraid," she said. "Of you?" Jonah asked. "Of you," she corrected. "Of what you represent." He exhaled slowly. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." "I know," she said. "That is why this matters." She sat across from him, hands folded. "My people believed that bonds weaken judgment, that love removes restraint. We built laws to prevent harm." "And now?" Jonah asked. "And now they see a species that feels deeply and still stops itself," she said. "That frightens them." Jonah considered that. "We mess up a lot," he said. "We're not perfect." "No species is," Aurelia replied. "But you are accountable in a way others are not. You choose responsibility even when no one watches." The council summoned them back. This time the chamber felt different. Less rigid, less certain, the senior counselor spoke. "Human Jonah Hale, do you understand the consequences of your actions?" Jonah nodded. "Yes." "Do you seek exemption from the compatibility laws?" Jonah shook his head. "No." That answer surprised them. "I don't want special treatment," he continued. "I want honest rules, ones that match reality." The council turned to Aurelia. "And you, liaison, do you still claim this human as a mate?" Aurelia paused. "No." Jonah's chest tightened. "I do not claim him," she continued. "I recognize him." She met Jonah's eyes. "A mate chosen freely must be chosen twice. I have made my choice. He must make his without pressure, without laws pushing him either way." The chamber was silent again. The council withdrew once more. This time the wait was shorter. When they returned, their decision was clear. "The classification of humanity is under revision," the council announced. "The biological compatibility laws will no longer apply to species capable of demonstrated voluntary restraint." Murmurs spread. "Bonding will be governed by consent, consistency, and mutual sacrifice," the counselor continued. "Not biology alone." Aurelia felt a weight lift from her chest. Jonah felt something warmer take its place. Aurelia was reinstated. Not quietly, not reluctantly, but formally. Her actions were recorded as the catalyst for reform. Jonah declined promotion offers. He returned to his workstation, sleeves rolled up, fixing systems that still broke no matter how big history became. But things were different now. Other species watched humans more closely. They saw the jokes used to ease fear, the pauses taken before words, the way humans stepped back to let others stand tall. They began to understand. Weeks later, Jonah and Aurelia met again in the station commons. No alarms. No observers pretending not to watch. This time, Jonah said with a small smile, no laws broken. None, Aurelia replied. She extended her hand not in claim but invitation. Jonah took it. Across the galaxy, stories spread, not of human strength, not of human conquest, but of a species that could feel everything and still choose wisely. And that, more than any weapon, changed everything. Time changed after the Council's decision, but it did not slow down. The station continued to hum. Ships arrived and left. Meetings filled the halls. Systems broke and were repaired. From the outside, it looked the same. From the inside, everything felt different. Jonah noticed it first in the way people looked at him, not with fear, not with praise, with thought. Alien delegates paused before speaking to him now. They watched how he listened, how he waited, how he chose his words. Some tried to test him the way Aurelia once had, though less carefully. They offered shortcuts. They hinted at favors. They pushed gently at boundaries. Jonah did what he always had. He chose carefully. Aurelia watched from a distance at first. That was her choice. Not because she doubted him, but because she respected him. Recognition was not possession. Understanding was not control. Among her people, this was still difficult to explain. She was summoned home. The journey back to her world took weeks. Jonah returned fully to his work, though his focus slipped at times. He wondered what waited for her, whether her people would truly accept the change or only tolerate it. Aurelia's homeworld was quiet in a way space stations were not. Wide skies, open land, structures built for thought, not speed. The elders met her in a circle, not a chamber. "You have unsettled many," one elder said. "I know," Aurelia replied. "Do you regret it?" She did not answer immediately. She remembered Jonah stepping back when he could have leaned in, remembered him choosing stillness when movement would have been easier. "No," she said. The elders shared looks. "You claim humans are not ruled by impulse," another said. "Yet they feel intensely." "Yes," Aurelia said, "that is why they matter." "They are dangerous," an elder argued. "A species that feels and chooses could disrupt balance." Aurelia lifted her gaze. "Or protect it." Silence followed. Finally, the eldest spoke. "Bring the human." Jonah received the request 3 days later. No demand, no order, an invitation. He hesitated. Not because he was afraid, but because he understood the weight of being seen, truly seen. Aurelia did not push. "If you say no," she told him, "nothing changes." Jonah thought about that, then shook his head. "Things already changed," he said. "I should show up." The journey to her world felt longer than expected. Jonah spent most of it observing, not preparing speeches. He had learned that explanation mattered less than example. When he arrived, he was not escorted. He was guided. Aurelia walked beside him, not ahead. The elders watched him closely. His posture, his pace. The way he looked at Aurelia, not as an object but as a person sharing space. They asked questions. "Why did you stay in the chamber?" one asked. Jonah answered simply, "Because leaving would have hurt someone who didn't deserve it." "Why did you not claim her when the law changed?" "Because she's not something to claim." That caused quiet ripples among them. They tested him without calling it a test. They delayed his return ship. He waited without complaint. They offered him status among them. He declined politely. They questioned his loyalty to his own kind. He defended humanity without exaggeration. "We are flawed," he said, "but we try to fix what we break." That answer stayed with them. One elder finally asked the question they had all been circling. "Do you wish to bond with our liaison?" Jonah looked at Aurelia, not for permission, for honesty. "Yes," he said, "if she wishes the same." Aurelia felt something steady and warm settle inside her. "I do," she said. The elders did not celebrate, they did not object. They observed. Days passed. Jonah lived among them. He learned their rhythms, their silences, their careful distance. He respected it all. When he made mistakes, he apologized without defense. That mattered more than perfection. At the end of the observation period, the elders met again. "The human has not tried to impress us," one said. "That alone is impressive." "He does not bend," another added. "But he does not harden," the eldest nodded. "Then our laws must bend instead." The bond was not announced across the galaxy. It was not used as a symbol or a victory. It was simply allowed. When Jonah and Aurelia returned to the station, they did so as equals. Not representatives, not examples, just two people choosing to walk together. Others followed. Slowly, carefully. Across the coalition, laws changed in small ways. Observation replaced assumption. Choice replaced fear. Humans were no longer treated as risks to be contained, but as partners to be understood. Jonah returned to his work. Aurelia returned to hers. Sometimes they stood close. Sometimes they stood apart. Always they chose. And that choice became the quiet standard by which a galaxy learned something new. Not all strength is loud. Not all power takes. Some power waits, feels, and still decides to do no harm. Humanity had never shouted that truth. They had lived it. And now, finally, the stars were listening. The galaxy did not change all at once. It never did. Change arrived quietly, through habits, through pauses, through choices made when no one was watching. Jonah and Aurelia learned this together. Life after recognition was not easier. In many ways, it was harder. Where once they were ignored, now they were observed. Where once silence meant safety, now silence carried weight. They did not try to become symbols. They failed at that on the first day. A new delegation arrived at the station, a species newly admitted to the coalition. Their representatives were tense, their movements sharp, their voices clipped. They had studied humanity only through old reports, dangerous, emotional, unstable. Jonah was assigned as a systems guide. Aurelia attended as cultural support. The delegates watched closely as Jonah explained station protocols. He spoke slowly. He repeated himself when needed. When one delegate snapped at him, Jonah did not snap back. He waited. When the delegate finished, Jonah answered the question that was buried under the anger. That moment was recorded. It spread faster than any speech. Soon, requests came in. Not demands, requests. How do humans handle loss? Why do humans stop themselves when they could gain more? Is restraint learned or chosen? Jonah answered when he could. When he could not, he said so. Aurelia noticed how often he said, "I don't know." Among her people, certainty was valued. Among humans, honesty seemed to matter more. They spent evenings together in quiet spaces, not talking about politics or laws, but about small things, food preferences, childhood memories, mistakes that still felt heavy. Aurelia learned that humans carried regret like a companion. Not to punish themselves, but to remember. Jonah learned that her people feared error so deeply that they sometimes never acted at all. They helped each other without fixing each other. That balance mattered. The real test came months later. A distant system sent a request for aid, not military, not medical, cultural. A species on the edge of coalition space was collapsing under internal pressure. Their laws demanded emotional suppression. Bonds were regulated. Choice was removed for the sake of order. The result was quiet despair. The council debated for days. Intervention risked destabilization. Non-intervention meant watching a civilization slowly break. A junior counselor spoke up. "Send the humans." The chamber stilled. Not soldiers, not enforcers, observers. Jonah did not want to go, not because he was afraid, but because he understood the danger of being misunderstood. Aurelia stood with him as he voiced his concerns. "They might try to copy us," Jonah said. "That never works." "Then show them choice," Aurelia replied, "not answers." They went together. The world they arrived on was orderly, clean, silent, too silent. People spoke only when required. They stood at exact distances. Their eyes showed strain but no release. Jonah felt it immediately. Aurelia saw it even faster. They were not asked to fix anything. They were asked to observe, so they did. Jonah spent time with workers. He listened more than he spoke. He asked about routines, about rest, about dreams. Most said they did not dream. That worried him. Aurelia met with cultural leaders. She asked why bonds were forbidden. Because they lead to pain, the leaders said. And choice, Aurelia asked. Choice leads to chaos. Jonah and Aurelia shared what they learned. We can't change them, Jonah said, but we can show them a different way exists. They requested permission to do something simple, a shared meal. The idea was strange. Eating was functional on this world, not social. Permission was granted cautiously. Jonah cooked, not because he was the best, but because cooking required patience, timing, and adjustment. All human things. The meal was quiet at first. Then someone laughed, not loudly, not confidently, but genuinely. That sound changed the room. No laws were broken. No rules were challenged directly, but something shifted. Over weeks, small permissions followed. Time off without purpose. Conversations without outcome. Moments without measurement. The world did not collapse, it breathed. The leaders watched carefully. Fear faded into confusion. Confusion into curiosity. When Jonah and Aurelia left, nothing was fixed. But something was possible. Back at the station, the council reviewed the mission. They did nothing, one counselor said. And yet everything changed, another replied. That was when the coalition formally revised its core principle. Not all stability comes from control. Some comes from trust. Humans were no longer described as emotionally volatile in the official records. They were described as emotionally accountable. That word mattered. Jonah never read the report. Aurelia did. She showed him the final line. A species capable of choosing restraint without enforcement may serve as a stabilizing presence. Jonah smiled slightly. That's a long way to say we try not to be jerks. Aurelia laughed, fully, freely. That sound still surprised her. Years passed. The galaxy grew more complex, not simpler. New species, new conflicts, new questions. But the old fear of humanity faded, not because humans became quieter, but because they remained consistent. Jonah and Aurelia aged differently. Time marked them in unequal ways. They accepted that too. Their bond was not perfect. They argued, they misunderstood, they hurt each other unintentionally, and every time they chose repair over retreat. That choice became their legacy. Not statues, not laws named after them, stories. Stories of a human who stepped back when he could have taken more. Stories of an alien who broke a law to tell the truth. Stories of a galaxy that learned strength did not always look like force. Sometimes, it looked like a hand offered and waiting. Humanity never claimed the stars. They met them, and that was enough.